Good day, everyone. I'm Andrea Mitchell in New York, where Hillary Clinton still recuperating at home, but we can now report she will be returning to the trail on Friday. This as her lead over Donald Trump slips away. Our new NBC News SurveyMonkey online poll shows Clinton ahead of Trump by just 4 points, 48 to 44, half of what it was 3 weeks ago. And in a four-way matchup, Clinton is only 2 points ahead of Trump, with Libertarian candidate Gary Johnson taking 11%. Today, Trump is back on the trail as his running mate, Mike Pence, meets with fellow Republicans on Capitol Hill and answers questions about his recent David Duke comments.
For all the world, I have no idea why this man keeps coming up. I mean, Donald Trump and I have denounced David Duke repeatedly. I'm also not going to validate the language that Hillary Clinton used to describe the American people. Hillary Clinton wasn't talking about that bad man. She was talking about people all across this country who are coming out in record numbers to stand by Donald Trump.
Again today, David Duke talked about you specifically. Are you concerned that there's something about the Trump-Pence candidacy in these political times and the rhetoric that's been used that draws them to you?
Look, we live in a free country. And people of ill motives can associate themselves with politics. There are two people on the ballot here, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. One of them is going to be president of the United States of America. And I would submit to you, this is all a distraction.
NBC's Kelly O'Donnell is on Capitol Hill, where she was talking to Mike Pence. Kelly, how does this play out?
Well, for Governor Mike Pence, this is a test of how he can maintain himself, his style, his way of campaigning, and knowing these sorts of questions would come. He does not want to use some of the harsher language of this political season and does not want to embrace in any way the specific language that Hillary Clinton used. So asking him to concur on whether or not David Duke or some other figure like that is deplorable put him in that sort of spiral of appearing as if maybe he didn't fully denounce and him not wanting to embrace. So that's sort of where we're at here. He calls it a distraction. It is certainly a part of the politics of the moment. His reason for being here was to meet privately with House Republicans and senators who are also concerned about this political atmosphere for their own political interests, many of them on the ballot themselves, concerned about the future of the party. So that's been going on today. Some private meetings with figures like Ted Cruz and Mike Lee, who have not supported the ticket, and also a chance to have some private time with Speaker Ryan, who has been trying to get on the issues that matter to Republicans and away from some of the harsh rhetoric. At the same time, Ryan himself has been critical of Trump at different points when there have been things said or done that didn't sort of line up with where Paul Ryan would like to see the Republican Party. So Mike Pence came here, called it an emotional return. He served on Capitol Hill for a dozen years, and he is trying to turn the focus back onto Hillary Clinton. So answering the questions, but taking every chance to put pressure on her, calling on her to apologize for the deplorables comments and saying she wasn't talking about David Duke or a figure of that notoriety, saying that she was talking much more broadly about their voters. And that's what they will try to hammer away at, to say that Hillary Clinton was not treating voters with respect and that these voters need a voice, and that being the Trump-Pence ticket. That's what they're trying to argue. I'm also told that this was a kind of a unifying meeting for Republicans here on Capitol Hill because it is the last one they will have before Election Day in November. So they went over money and polling and kind of the lay of the land, an important piece for them, but also one to get that face-to-face time with Governor Pence. Andrea?
Kelly O'Donnell, thank you so much. And Donald Trump, the candidate himself, will be in Iowa this afternoon before heading to Pennsylvania for a speech on the costs of childcare, along with his daughter Ivanka. This as Trump continues to exploit Hillary Clinton's gaffe, saying that half of the Trump supporters could be put, quote, into the basket of deplorables. Joining me now is Trump's campaign manager, Kellyanne Conway. Kellyanne, thank you very much, and belated congratulations. We haven't chatted since you took the job.
Andrea, thank you very much. It's very kind of you. I appreciate it.
And we've got the health care issue front and center. Yes. We're told that Donald Trump is going to be, talking to Dr. Oz tomorrow. Let me play you what Brian Kilmeade had to say on Fox News Radio today with Dr. Oz about the way Dr. Oz is approaching this interview, which is supposed to be giving details of Donald Trump's health.
What if there's some embarrassing things on there?
Well, I bet you won't release them. But
It's still going to be his decision?
It's his decision. It's, the metaphor for me is this the doctor's office, the studio. So I'm not going to ask him questions he doesn't want to have answered. And I also don't want to talk about anybody else. We're not going to be talking about Secretary Clinton for sure. And I don't want to talk about things that are outside the health purview.
So what are we going to learn about the medical condition, his health report tomorrow from Donald Trump?
Well, Mr. Trump had a physical late last week, Andrea, in advance of us knowing that Hillary Clinton had pneumonia, or obviously what happened on 9/11 in the tape we've all seen. So he had that physical late last week because he believes that it's important for the public to know what his basic health condition is. And he has said that the doctor is preparing his report and that it will be made available this week.
And was it with Dr. Bornstein?
That I don't know. I was not present for his physical.
So we don't know if this is the same doctor who released that report in December, that, well, very brief, four or five paragraph letter.
Well, but remember, Andrew, I mean, I'm with Dr. Oz and millions of Americans on this. I don't know why we need such extensive medical reporting when we all have a right to privacy. And frankly, I'm also with most of the American people who are very upset that many of them had to change doctors after many years with their doctors under Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act. Why would somebody change a doctor when they're in good shape or they've been healthy for so long? I think that's being lost in the conversation. On a different network this morning, Dr. Bornstein was being ridiculed by an anchor who's not a medical professional. I think it's a little out of hand.
Well, NBC News, as you know, interviewed Dr. Bornstein, and the fact is that Dr. Bornstein's one-page letter was very brief. There is a tradition here, started many decades ago. Dr. Lawrence Altman of the New York Times was one of the great proponents of it, going all the way back to, the 1972 campaign. And in fact, there's a tradition. John McCain let reporters read through thousands and thousands of pages, that the American people have the right to know what the health is of their prospective commander-in-chief.
I agree with your premise, and so the question remains, why in the world did Hillary Clinton lie to everyone and conceal such an important fact for 2 days, saying she was overheated and dehydrated, and then, of course, hours and hours later, after, unfortunately, her health had become the biggest trending story of the day, not the 9/11 fallen. Why wait all those hours? So I agree with you. It's an important issue, and I think that there's one candidate in this race who's had recent health challenges that we all saw. I agree with Donald Trump on this, and certainly I would hope all of us, Andrea, regardless of your political persuasion, that we're glad Hillary Clinton says she's feeling better and she'll be back on the campaign trail soon. But the question remains, if this is about transparency and medical records and health conditions, then why was she so furtive in the business of concealment here? Also, I'd just like to mention, because you briefly touched upon it, but out of respect for the viewers and the voters who are demanding real solutions from these candidates, I'm really happy that this evening I'll be with Ivanka and Donald Trump and many others talking about one of the vexing issues of our day, which is child care. It's a huge part of the family budget. It's a very delicate issue for many families who need to know they've got quality, dependable care. And frankly, our tax code needs to be modernized to keep up with that.
Well, I'm going to get to that in just a moment. Let me just continue on the health issue, because there's been plenty of coverage questioning here as well as everywhere else that I've noticed, questioning why Hillary Clinton did not reveal sooner to the public as well as to her own campaign aides that she had pneumonia. Here was her response on CNN with Anderson Cooper last night.
Compare everything you know about me with my opponent. I think it's time he met the same level of disclosure that I have for years. You've got a medical report on me that meets the same standard as Mitt Romney and Barack Obama. Donald Trump's doctor said he'd be the healthiest president in history. That's just not even serious. I've talked to my staff. We take responsibility for that. But the information is out there.
And to the point that Dr. Bornstein's previous letter in December of 2015 said that he would be the healthiest president in American history. That's hardly a medical report.
Well, what I hardly can't believe is Hillary Clinton and really all of her senior team and her surrogates, it takes them about 10 seconds or 10 words to change an answer about them on almost anything, Andrea, over to Donald Trump. I'm glad that we're living in their heads. I'm glad Donald Trump occupies some serious real estate in her head, but she was being asked by Anderson Cooper Why not just tell us? And are you feeling better? And what else?
Well, she
should
did
we
answer
know?
those questions, but she did, as you point out, she turned it to, why should I be...
She always does.
Why should I put out all of this information when no one is asking him to put out this information? So the question is, what are we going to get tomorrow? How specific will be the information about his physical condition?
I don't know, because I have not conferred with the doctor, Andrea, but I'm glad that Mr. Trump is going to reveal it this week, and I would again tell everybody who may be suspicious about the timing that he had a physical late last week. I'm sure it'll be dated in the paperwork. But let me just answer something else, since you played that clip of Secretary Clinton. When she talks about, everybody knows everything about me, that's part of the problem. I think that's why, according to even the NBC poll, majorities of Americans don't like her and don't trust her. And I think those twin pillar problems of trustworthiness and transparency got worse in the last 72 hours, not better. I understand why she's being defensive and she wants to turn this back to Donald Trump. Well, then she needs to understand that in your own NBC SurveyMonkey poll, it's tightening because people are just not convinced that this woman, who's got a lot of advantages and privileges in this race, no doubt, just can't put him away.
In recent polls, they are tired in unfavorable ratings, and you're absolutely right about the trust factor. It is one of the biggest things dragging on her. The reason for the health questions for him, aside from the fact that there is a tradition that he has not lived up to what Mitt Romney did, what Barack Obama did, is that he would be the oldest person ever to take the oath of office. That said, let's get back to what is being unveiled today, the child care proposals, Ivanka Trump, Donald Trump. One of the downsides, and there is, extended maternity leave, paid leave, and all the rest. One of the downsides, according to most experts, is that if you are a low-income American and you don't pay federal taxes, that's a lot of the people in this country, you would get no benefit at all under this plan. It would be very helpful to those who are employed.
Well, no, they would get an expansion under the EITC, the Earned Income Tax Credit, and we also would try to clean up all the abuse in the unemployment system so that we could actually fund very fairly and fully these benefits for folks. And I'm just so proud to work in a campaign, Andrea, that is tackling this. Republicans usually do not tackle this, particularly at the presidential level. It's like, let's just look the other way. What, does it not poll well? I mean, in other words, we're trying to capture the culture here and have policy responses to whatever is frustrating or concerning or even animating and exciting people. And so if you look at this plan, and the whole plan will be revealed, there'll be an op-ed, there's a plan, there's background, there are experts to be consulted. It's really exciting that, we've got Hillary Clinton talking about how she's always been fighting for children, she fights for children. We can't really find a lot about her child care policy on her website. Maybe they're putting it up now as I speak to you, but we know they talk about it, but we're actually going to do it. This is the tradition of the Trump campaign now. We talk about policy every single day. Law enforcement, defeating radical Islam, middle-class tax relief. We'll be talking about what's next after Obamacare soon. We talked about school choice and charters last week, the military yesterday. Today is child care. So we're always doing something to answer those questions that voters legitimately have, Andrea, which is, what will you do as Commander-in-Chief? What will you do as President of the United States? Hillary Clinton told us a couple days ago she doesn't want to be president of all the people. She has, I think, a privileged scorn for tens of millions of Americans in her terrible comments. But we also agree with the second part of her unfortunate comments, which is that there are millions of Americans that are, quote, to quote her, quote, desperate for change. They're desperate for change because this administration, of which she's been a part, has not addressed the economic woes of all Americans, and certainly has done very little to help people meet the needs of quality, dependable child care.
Let me
it's
ask
a big
you about that
issue in our
child care
society.
issue and the fact that in the latest Washington Post ABC poll, 60% of Americans believe that Donald Trump is biased against women and minorities. Doesn't that show that your campaign has a major problem with these parts of the electorate, with women and minorities?
Yeah. Those people must read the Washington Post. But in any event, so of course we're going for all voters. And we go to places where Republicans don't traditionally go, right into the black churches, down to Louisiana to help, over to Mexico to meet with the president, then up the same day in Arizona to give a speech on immigration. So we're vying for all votes, not just, I really feel like Tim Kaine's comments after Hillary Clinton's comments made it worse on Saturday morning. It doesn't even sound like They had basically conferred, but he said she doesn't need to apologize because there are some votes that we're not going to get. Really? That's how we're looking at people. We're looking at them as voters and not human beings and not as Americans. That's not a very unifying message. I think the Democratic parties, you know, in the past, they've been really successful in elevating and indeed electing folks who ran on unity, like Bill Clinton and Barack Obama and JFK. And now it's a very divisive sounding way to try to capture all Americans. I realize her fat cat donors on Wall Street really yucked it up and had a good old time at the expense of hardworking Americans. But let me tell you something, Andrea, whenever Hillary Clinton is seen in her own words and can't blame her, quote, political enemies, the vast right-wing conspiracy, it's bad for her because that's her on tape. And I respectfully disagree when people characterize what she said as a gaffe. She was reading prepared remarks, and she had said it previously. A gaffe
she had not
is
said
sort
half,
of a, you know,
she had not said half of the supporters previously. She had referred to the deplorables, but she had not used that categorization, the quantifying it in terms of half the supporters. You know, according to the Associated Press that did a survey on issues, we noted this after Donald Trump talked about policies, and now he talks most about policies as you just had, that Donald Trump had 7 issues on his website totaling some 9,000 words. Hillary Clinton had 38 issues on her website with 112,000 words. Now, yes, he's talking more about policies since you've taken over, and you know, there's been a noticeable change in the presentations on the campaign stump, but certainly not for the year previous.
Well, the 100 and some thousand words definitely sounds like what a politician and a bureaucrat does. They do it with our tax codes. They do it on their websites. If we're going to run this election expecting voters to go to our websites and figure out what these people believe on policy, I respect the voters more than that. I think they'd prefer that these candidates come to them and, or at least make public statements where you have a 4 or 5 point, 10 point roadmap in the case of our Veterans Administration reform plan, Andrea. This idea that we're going to do it on websites and just Mrs. Clinton's going to fly around just raising money and not talking to voters, I think it's a losing formula, and I hope they stick with it.
Kellyanne, I've been on the road with her for a year and a half, and I've watched your campaign, you know, from a distance. I've been on the Democratic campaign, watching it, covering it. She has been talking to voters. I mean, that's what the listening tour was about. I mean, at the same time, you know, there was a lot of criticism from Donald Trump that she was meeting with small groups. That's what she was doing, was talking to voters. She was not at big rallies, and so you can't have it both
I guess the
ways.
question remains why she can't get to 55, 60, 65% of women. She's running as the first female. I don't understand. Well, I do understand, and I do know why, but it's a great question to ask. I mean, is it the truthfulness, the transparency problems? Is it that they just are saying that, yeah, I want a woman, but not that woman? It's not a hypothetical. It's Hillary Clinton. Time's running short here, and I don't think they're in a position where they expected to be after spending $200,000 plus between their super PACs and the campaign on ads just to say Donald Trump takes the wings off of butterflies. I mean, why are they so tight in your own polling?
No,
so we're excited with our formula.
He's going back to Pennsylvania today. Do you think you can win Pennsylvania?
We're sure going to try, Andrea. Pennsylvania is very important to us. You will see the candidates there quite a bit. We'll be in the suburbs of Philadelphia today talking about an important issue to all Americans, male and female child care. And we are vying for the votes in Pennsylvania. And every time somebody says, well, Democrats won it the last 6 times in a row, anytime one tries to apply convention to Donald Trump, they lose out. Because as we know, Andrea, he's a very unconventional politician, a non-politician running a very unconventional campaign. And so we feel good about Pennsylvania, and you're going to see the candidate there a great deal.
And you could argue, according to our polling, that this election could be won or lost in the suburbs of places like Philadelphia, where those swing voters are, and they usually vote Republican, and we'll have to see whether he can appeal to them today. Thank you very much. I hope this is the beginning of a conversation that we can continue.
Very happy to be with you, Andrea. Thank you for the platform.
And coming up,